Hello, everyone. I am pleased to welcome you all to our meetup for the month of April. Thank you for making time to join us. My name is Linda Nsifel, and I am the convener of Women in Research, Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning. Before we dive into our discussion, I would like us to quickly go through the agenda and then we'll engage in some icebreakers. So I will share my screen now, and you can confirm if you can see my screen. In the meantime, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Please let us know where you're joining us from, what you currently do, and what you're expecting from this meetup. Okay. All right, so as we are all aware, we'll be exploring the topic impact-driven project evaluations in the WASH sector. And I will do well to introduce our speaker soon. So this is going to be our agenda for today. So as I mentioned, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, and then we'll have an icebreaker. I'll introduce the speaker. She will go through her presentation with us. Afterwards, we'll have a time of Q&A and feedback, comments, sharing of experiences. Then I'll give some announcements and then we'll end the session for today. All right, so for our icebreaker, I would love us all to participate. You can unmute yourself if you have the answer, or you can type your answer in the chat. So let's make it as engaging as we can. So we're going to have some riddles, and hopefully there are some of us here, or if not some, all of us, we like to participate or engage in riddles. So let's do well to provide the answers that come into our minds. Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. So just give it a try. Then I will come in to confirm whether that's the answer that I'm looking for. Okay. So riddle number one. How does a researcher keep their data organized? So I'll be checking the chat window. Okay, let me see. Any responses? Okay, so I'll repeat the question. How does a researcher keep their data organized? Any responses? Okay, I'm sure we're all thinking about the answer. Okay. Seeing any responses, let me see if there are any hands up. Okay, no hands yet. Okay. All right, I'll move on to the next one. So if you need some time to think about the answer to the first question, yeah, you still have time to do that. So the second riddle is, why did the researcher cross the road? Why did the researcher cross the road? Okay, I'm giving us some time to think about the answer. Seeing anything in the chat? Not yet. Okay. All right, so I'm moving on. Okay, so the third riddle is, so this one is a bit long, so I will do well to read it twice. This type of research examines how well a particular method or intervention works in a real-world setting. What is this form of evaluation? This type of research examines how well a particular method or intervention works in a real-world setting. What is this form of evaluation known as? Okay, so that's riddle 3. Any takers? Okay, moving on to the fourth one. So the fourth one reads, in research, this document outlines the goals, methods, and significance of a study before it begins. What is it called? What is it called? In research, this document outlines the goals, methods, and significance of a study before it begins. What is it called? Okay, so that's riddle number 4. Any responses? Okay, not seeing anything yet. All right. Shall we move on to riddle 5, which is our last riddle? So it goes like this. I can be old or new, factual or fictional, and researchers analyze me to find patterns. What am I? What am I? I'll take it again. I can be old or new, factual or fictional, and researchers analyze me to find patterns. What am I? Okay, so we have an answer. Yes, for number 5, yes, I'll take that. Yes, could be data sets, yes. Okay, so thank you, Daphine. Thank you, Francis, for your responses. Okay, so I'll go over the previous questions I read out. So I'll go backwards then. So from 5, I'll go to 4. So in research, this document outlines the goals, methods, and significance of a study before it begins. What is it called? What is it called? Okay, any responses for that? I can read it again. In research, this document outlines the goals, methods, and significance of a study before it begins. What is it called? Okay. All right. Okay, so I'll be giving the answers because of time. So for question 4, which I just read, the answer is a research proposal. Okay, now moving to 3. This type of research examines how well a particular method or intervention works in a real-world setting. What is this form of evaluation known as? Okay, let's see the responses. Okay, so the answer for this question is okay, Daphine. Okay. I will take that. I'll take the feasibility study. So the answer I have here is field study, but yeah, we do have some feasibility studies which are field studies anyway. So I'll take the answer. Thank you, Daphine. So number 2, why did the researcher cross the road? Why did the researcher cross the road? Okay, so the answer for this question is to conduct a field study. Okay. All right, so back to question 1. How does a researcher keep their data organized? Just give us a few seconds for that. Okay, there's no response for number 1, so I will give the answer. So the answer to question 1 is spreadsheets. Spreadsheets. All right, so thank you all for participating, and yeah, hopefully we'll have more of these in our subsequent meetups. All right, so moving on, I will now introduce our speaker for today. So our speaker for today is in the person of Daphine Jemima Birungi, and she is a monitoring and evaluation professional with over 4 years of experience at Viva Con Agua, Uganda, where she serves as the M&E and Communications Officer. She holds a bachelor's degree in development economics from Makerere University, a postgraduate diploma in monitoring and evaluation from Uganda Management Institute, or UMI, and a Master of Science in International Public Health from Liverpool John Moores University. Passionate about people, Daphine is driven by uncovering untold and often overlooked stories through her work, an approach she embraces as outcome harvesting. All right, so with a virtual round of applause, please let's welcome our speaker for today, Daphine. Daphine, you are welcome. We are ready for your presentation.
Um, Thank you, Linda. Hello, everyone. Um, just as Linda has introduced me, I am really honored to be part of today's conversations, and I'm glad that the women in research, monitoring, evaluation, and learning found me interesting and felt like I am fit for this conversation. And yeah, I am happy and I'm happy to share what I have in store for us. Um, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I hope I'm still audible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So today's topic, as we all know, is impact-driven M&E in the WASH sector. A brief background about myself on top of what Linda has shared. I have a strong background in WASH, and I have been in the WASH sector for the past 4, coming to 5 years now, serving in different roles. I have literally grown in the WASH sector. I started as an apprenticee straight from university, and then I served as a project officer until I found my niche, and that's how I ended up in M&E. And what's so interesting about me and M&E specifically is I get to serve in 2 roles, which I feel are compatible. So I get to serve as an M&E, but also a communications. For me, this combination works quite well because with communications, you need data. And then, I'm the custodian of data in all projects in the organization. And then I get to communicate this in all forms to all stakeholders at different levels. And this helps me dissect data or information to different people differently. And for me, that stands out as a highlight for my work. Um, I'm also very passionate about storytelling because I feel like a lot of stories are covered in our reports. First of all, usually project reports are bulky. uh, I don't know, recently I had a report of 50 pages, and I feel like not everyone is really going to read all these all that content. But when we M&Es come out and dissect this data, it all speaks to knowing your audience, who should know what. And for me, that has made my work easy. I can communicate better to anyone at all different levels. I can meet a 4-year, a 10-year, and a 60-year stakeholder, and I can easily communicate our projects because I have that information, I have the data, and I know how to communicate it through experience. A brief about me. Just like Linda shared, I have a background in development economics at Makerere University, and then I also did postgraduate diploma in M&E, coupled with a Master's of Science in Public Health at Liverpool, John Moores University. And I think that's why I am best fit to dissect the topic of impact-driven evaluations in the WASH sector. Um, Yeah, when I was approached, I don't know, when you are in this field, you feel, oh, impact driven and it's evaluation, you feel like it's an easy topic or it's self-explanatory. But then I did a simple survey around people in my organization, friends, people in my network, and then I could do a spot on of, hi, when you hear evaluation, what happened? What comes to your mind? Oh, that's like an audit. Oh, I got all these different responses that I summarized into 4. So when most people hear evaluations or impact evaluation, what comes to their mind is, did the project do what it promised? Did you achieve the stated targets? So when it comes to WASH, what were the outputs? Boreholes, how many did you drill? If it were toilets, how many toilets did you build? When it comes to accountability, we gave you 2,000 euros, and how did you spend it? Did you spend it on the planned activities? Did the project succeed or fail? I mean, people just want to hear that. Did we make it or not? Period. But they are right. However, when we come to impact-driven evaluation, we ask questions like, did lives actually change? Did behavior change? What happened? What unexpected change happened? Who drove this change? Why? Why do you think so? What was the before and the after? What would have happened? What would have happened differently had the intervention not happened? Or what is different now that you have this intervention? And I think that's where also storytelling comes in. Yeah, and then I have also been really dissecting a topic called outcome harvesting. It's more into the evaluation, but now this looks into the deeper story, the deeper insights, things we didn't really intend to happen, but happen. This could be positive or negative. And I I could define this as a participatory evaluation method that collects evidence of changes in behavior, relationships, policies, and practices. And then it works backwards to assess how the project contributed. So when I speak about outcome harvesting, this is the story behind our intervention. It's not only about numbers. Okay, yeah, we intended, what was the set target? 20 boreholes. How many do we have? Oh, we have 19 because A, B, C, D. Yeah, that's the traditional M&E. But then when we come to outcome harvesting, okay, yeah, you drilled these boreholes. So what happened? What was the situation before? How many kilometers were people moving to the nearest water source? And how many do they move now? Okay, so how much time do you spend at the borehole now that all communities, all villages have at least a hand pump? And what are you using this extra time for? So outcome harvesting goes beyond numbers. It looks at lifestyle, the livelihoods, the intent, what I call the spillover effect of the intervention or of the project. And I think as M&E professionals, we should go beyond just the numbers. We should find the story, because currently donors are really into the story. We are selling the story, not the numbers. Yeah, and so when to compare traditional M&E and outcome harvesting, I'm looking at the log frame on the side of the traditional M&E. When we are in school, when we are in practice, you have this mentor, your boss, they're always telling you what is in the log frame. Donor templates are always having output, so you're reporting against every output. That's our traditional M&E. We are having surveys, snapshot surveys at the end of the project, where we hire an external evaluator, and this person comes in with all their data collecting, the data collectors, the enumerators. I mean, they are new to the community, and I mean that's the whole point, that we are trying to fight bias, and we are trying to get the actual data from people, because yeah, I mean, if it's a project staff collecting this data, there'll be a lot of bias. They're trying to cover their tracks and everything, and that's all under the traditional M&E. And then it's also donor centric. I mean, the donor wants it, so why not? This is the this is the log frame that we attach to the proposal. Therefore, we have to follow it also in the reporting templates. And that's what we have been doing in the past years as M&Es. But then there are gaps to this, because one, outputs are not always equal to the outcomes. Like I had earlier shared, you constructing a borehole does not necessarily mean there is access, or you constructing a toilet does not necessarily mean that we are doing away with open defecation, because there is more to open defecation than just the facilities. It also goes back to behavior, beliefs, cultural beliefs, tradition, exposure, because I know of a community in Uganda where they believe that you have to cover your poo, because in the toilet you don't know if these emptiers come, you don't know where they are taking your poo. So you constructing a mere toilet does not mean you are solving a sanitation problem. Yeah. And then learning does not feed back in time. So in the traditional M&E, when we do an evaluation and this external evaluator gives us this report, sometimes it's not put into practice because it's not from the stakeholders themselves. It's not from the people. It's usually not participatory. And then that's where we introduce outcome harvesting, which tracks behavior and relationship change. So with outcome harvesting, we also use observation that, okay, yeah, we have this hand washing station here, and then you could sit there and see how many people are actually washing their hands now, and at what times are they washing their hands, what has changed. So if before the intervention, women would line up at the water source, you would find over 50 jerry cans. And yeah, of course, they are wasting time now, time that they would give to their farms, to their families, they are wasting it on water. And now you find a few people, because now you have already drilled in different spots, and then you're reducing on the distance. And all this also goes back to the people, the conversations you're having. How are they so it also goes back to attribution. Can we really attribute this change to this intervention? Yeah. So that's how we are tracking behavior. We are tracking that, has this change happened because we have done this, or it's because of something else. And we always have to know what that something else, because evaluations are supposed to be a learning point, and then we could always change something in our implementation, adopt something from somewhere, and then we are always getting feedback from our participants. Yeah. And then outcome harvesting also collects real stories from the field. It's not just about numbers, it's about the insight. How do people feel about this particular thing? I don't know, I have a lot of examples, unfortunately, from Uganda, but I believe there is a story really, I don't know. I don't know how everyone feels about stories, but after a project, for us at usually in my assignments, I want to track change. So from around year one, I start tracking my participants, and then by year 5, year 4, you're already seeing change, and now you can attribute it to your intervention because you are also keeping your data. That's what outcome harvesting does. It looks more at the behavior, not just the output or the facility, because there are many people who put up facilities, and the communities vandalize them because you did not consult with them. You don't know what they want. Yeah. So outcome harvesting really collects the real stories from the field, and then works backwards from change to attribution. So for example, if yeah, it's a wash in school project, and at baseline, we could see that children are missing school, and we don't know why, but they are actually missing school. And then we sit back and we're like, okay, what are the possible reasons children, especially girls, are missing school? And then we bring out this topic of menstrual hygiene. And yeah, because there is stigma, there is knowledge gap. And I mean, through a CAP survey, you can find a knowledge gap. You could find a facility there is a need for facilities, and then in like here too you construct facilities, but also you've been having facilitations for engaging girls. Menstruation is normal, menstrual blood is clean, you can do whatever you want in your menstruation, and then you're having all these advocacy talks with them, and then in year 4 you realize that all girls are more confident. I mean, it's a bit unfair for you to come out and you say, yeah, this has changed because of my intervention. With outcome harvesting, we go and we try to attribute, we want to find an attribution to our contribution. So as we are doing the impact evaluations, we also need to find the attribution to this impact. Yeah. I don't know if people are still following, but anyone? Linda, am I still clear?
Yes. Yes, you are. You may
Okay,
proceed.
thank you. Because yeah, I'm also not seeing the chat, so just in case there is a comment that pops up,
Yeah,
kindly let
I'll
me
draw
know.
your attention.
Yeah,
Yes.
all right, thank you. Yeah, and then when I come to how the wash sector has long relied on log frames, I mean, it's not wrong to rely on a log frame because that's the approved document by the donor. However, the log frame has some shortfallings. So, for example, it counts and it doesn't consider change. So, with the log frame, we are just reporting against indicators, and we know indicators are supposed to be smart, yeah, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound. So it's really about counting. Because you're specific. You cannot say 10 people. I don't know. It is numbers with the log frame, yeah. And then it also has a linear causality that with the log frame, and also when we are drafting the theory of change, it's linear. However, when we come to outcome harvesting, we have spillovers. You could think that because I have this water supply system set up in this particular village, women are going to spend less time walking, fetching water. You're thinking about health because now they have safe water near them. You have also given them probably purification technologies. However, during your impact evaluation, you realize, oh, because of this, someone hopefully started up a business. And why? Because now, oh, you find through storytelling, you find that there is a woman out there who has started up a restaurant because now water is near. I can cook easily, and yeah, it's also improving my livelihood because probably I'm in a female-led family and I'm the breadwinner. So when this came up, I managed to do this and this and this. I feel like that's the actual impact. Yes, water is there. That's good. Of course, we have to report on the numbers. That's what the money should do. However, we could also tell the other stories so people can know that when you give a service, it does not only solve one problem, it solves multiple. And it's amazing. It looks very beautiful for you to have such a story told. If I was that donor, I would definitely give you more or double. Yeah. And then with the traditional M&E, there is always a missed attribution. With traditional M&E, all we want to know is the work done good, we move. However, with impact evaluations, we need to know why did this change happen and what can we do best? What can we change to do better? So I would tell a story around attribution. There was a community in, was it Nepal, Ethiopia, where so this NGO came, and of course we are always behind our computers and we think we know it all. Oh, these people need water. Oh my God, they are walking 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers. And so these people came and constructed a borehole only to find a month later, it was vandalized. And now when they started, now that's when they remembered to consult the stakeholders. And so families, adults told them that because they have small houses, they that distance for them gives parents time to, to have their time alone because children have gone to fetch water. So with this now, if such a project now hired an evaluator who's really invested in impact, they would now know that, okay, for us to have good impact, we need to consult with stakeholders. That's a lesson. And you can only know that when you look out for that story, not just, oh, these people need operation and maintenance. We have to strengthen, we have to form water user committees. We have to, push them to pay because they are vandalizing, they are not owning that project. Of course, they won't own because you didn't consult with them. So with outcome harvesting here, you get the story, and it doesn't mean that impact has to always be positive. There can always be negative impact, and from the negative impact, we learn and design better projects. Yeah, and yeah, now this introduces us to how we can use impact outcome harvesting and impact evaluations. One, so I try to summarize all the steps into 5. The first one being identifying the outcomes. Yeah, from the outputs, we can now identify the outcomes. What changed in the world? What changed in the project area? What changed? Children are no longer missing school. Yeah, that changed. Okay, so you describe what changed. You talk about it. Yeah, and then when after talking about it, you substantiate. This is where you look at enrollment, you look at some schools usually have the sick base, or the senior women always have like this data collected on health. Probably, was it malaria? What was really disturbing? Is it malaria? Is it period cramps? And then now you assess the contribution. So because when you look at why children were missing school before the intervention and now they are not, and now you're looking out for reasons. So you are going to look at maybe parents' livelihoods. If the parents now have money, and because maybe children were missing because they didn't pay school fees. Is it because of health? Is it because of comfort or confidence now that parents have in the school, that the school has all these facilities? So yeah, my child is safe to go every day. And so this is when we are now assessing different reasons, and now we are trying to attribute that change to our intervention. And this is how we tell the stories, guys. Yes, I don't want to be misunderstood that the traditional M&E is bad, and we can always actually build onto it. So we could always build onto the traditional to make it better and communicate our impact better. Yeah, and the last step in outcome harvesting is interpreting and use. So after we assess our contribution, then we can now interpret our results, and then we communicate and learn, adopt, disseminate, use. I don't know, anything we can do with that information is important. Yeah, and I also tried to compare the log frame approach with the outcome harvesting. Yeah, where in the log frame we ask were the planned outputs delivered, and in outcome harvesting we're asking what changed and how did we contribute. So in the log frame we want to know how many sanitary pads were distributed, how many MHM kits, menstrual hygiene management kits, were distributed. However, in outcome harvesting, we are looking at, okay, after we distributed these, what changed? So because girls now have sanitary pads, are they missing school? Are they more confident? Are they interactive? Because they got all these trainings. So let's say at the log frame approach, we are seeing number of trainings conducted. In the outcome harvesting, we are looking at what changed after the training. Yeah. Yeah, and then I also have practical entry points. So, for example, when we are conducting outcome harvesting, we need the community wash committees, because these are the people in the communities. These are the people that the change has happened to. These are the people that the intervention targeted. So you need to involve them from the beginning to the end, because they will tell you this, because you need all these insights on what was before, what would have happened if the project wasn't there, what has happened now the project is there. Do you think it's because of the project, or there are some other factors, and what are these factors? So if you have this relationship with the community committees, and in WASH, we call them the WASH committees, the health committees, it's easier to attribute your change. And then the WASH norms, with norms, we in behavior change studies, we believe that behavior change takes time. And through experience, I happen to also conduct menstrual hygiene sessions, and you talk about certain things, and you could read people's faces. For example, when we are introducing different materials, the safe materials that are recommended, you could talk of so, these people, first of all, they can't afford the disposable pads. And now you're talking about reusables, the washable pads. And then people be like, who's going to wash that? This is your blood. Sometimes you go to communities, and for them, they have to feel safe. They have to dump the disposable sanitary pad in the latrines, and then you keep telling them this is not safe, because when it's time to empty, the emptiers won't be able to pull out everything. And people be like, so you will get to know a lot of myths, norms, beliefs. And as you engage people further, of course, with patience, you interact more, you get to see a change. Usually after 3 years, you will see a change in attitude. And then, of course, with attitude, you also now have to assess the practice, knowledge, and all these have to be tracked for you to attribute, to ease attribution to the project. And then we could also look at policy and institutional change. This usually applies to advocacy kind of projects or interventions. And so I would give an example in Western Uganda, where we had a system strengthening project. It was a lot of talking. It was tedious, but at the end, you realize we conducted a survey, and it was so satisfying that we got these stories from the district leadership, the government officials now talking about, oh, before I actually didn't know that that was my responsibility. And now by the time the project ended, they had already passed a policy on vandalism, because in this community, it's so prone to to floods. However, citizens go ahead and destroy the pipe systems. And they are hilly. It's so hard to take water there. But then knowledge, I don't know, practice, people were vandalizing everything. There was a very huge gap between the communities and government officials, especially the water office. And it was a lot of advocacy. It was a lot of talking. However, for us, it was so satisfying that by the time the project ended, we had a policy already. And the district officials, who are the local government officials, were already pushing it to parliament. And right now the bill is into discussion. So I could happily tell that story. However, it only happened after 4 years, and you cannot start tracking impact early, 6 months, 1 year. It takes time, and it takes record keeping. And then the other one is system sustainability. We should identify outcomes related to the local market development, tariff reforms, or utility. In the wash sector, specifically in Uganda, we were having issues with tariffs, and we had to, how you have to have a campaign water is a human right. Water is this, water is this, water is this. And then you are convincing people why they are supposed to pay. And then, of course, the organizations in charge of water supply are exploiting, but also the people they're exploiting are not paying. And yeah, that whole system imbalance. Yeah. And then, I mean, through outcome harvesting, you could now tell that, oh yeah, people are now paying because they know why they are paying. They know what this money is supposed to do. And government is accountable to the people, or these organizations in charge of water supply in this community are also held accountable. People know their rights. And so we could see all these points across projects, and how you can easily derive your impact through storytelling, through tracking, through outcome harvesting. Yeah. And then the key evaluation shifts. I could say from counting outputs to witnessing transformation. And so here I was also trying to show how we can do best, how we can do better, how we can improve our evaluations, how we can improve our tools. Yeah, the numbers are important, but yeah, it's also easy to see it in the other lens. So from predetermined indicators to emergent harvested evidence. So we already have these indicators, and these are easily tracked, but there are also other unexpected changes that happen, and we need to give ourselves flowers for this, because we have invested the money, the resources, the time, everything, to see that there is change in these communities. So also from donor-centric reporting to community-validated narratives. Outcome harvesting is more participatory than the traditional M&E. With outcome harvesting, we need to involve community leaders. They are the ones who know these stories. They have been there before and after the project. So it's more community centered, and this is a plus for us evaluators, because it gives the project also more ownership. Yeah. Oh, I was here. I always find people in villages, and they're like, me, I was born here. From the time I was born, I had never seen water flowing. We always went to the other well, and of course, when they take you there, you really want to cry. It's like dirty water in a well. And this guy is telling you, but before, let me I used not I used to fall sick every time. My children were always sick, but now, because I have this and this has changed. We get this through participatory approaches, bringing these people together, making them feel part of us, feel part of the evaluation process. Yeah, and then we also move from attribution claims to contribution stories. Yeah, because in the traditional M&E, we are like, yeah, because we did this happened, of course. But when you go back to the participatory kind of evaluations, you get to get stories that, yeah, you will find that, yes, you have contributed to this, but there is more to it. People have been involved, so there is ownership. There is, someone gave land, someone gave up this, someone gave up this. It's, usually we want to own every success, but I think it's better to acknowledge all other contributors to the success of these projects. Yeah, and then there is also a shift from end of project evaluation to ongoing developmental evaluations. Traditional M&E teaches us for long-term projects that we have like 3 evaluations, like that's the baseline, midline, and endline. And after the endline, we have a report and we move. However, with outcome harvesting, it's a process. It's a continuous process, so we keep tracking these changes, we keep attributing, learning, changing, follow up on the story, learn, change, tell the story. reach more people. So it's not just a one-off, it's a continuous process. Yeah. So what does the real wash impact look like? So this is how I thought I could present this best. So from I had to review something from IRC where they stated that 73% of WASH projects meet output targets. However, only 31% demonstrate sustained behavior change at 3 years. What does this mean? That I mean, 73 is a very big number. These people just report on the outputs, yeah? And this is easy. I mean, you have the money, you have the personnel, you have the communities. It's easy. You want to construct toilets. Communities will give you the land. However, how are you going to sustain? I mean, you met this community that they didn't really believe in toilets, and now you give them a toilet. Yeah, they may maintain it because you're still there. But when you leave, what happens? They just go back to their usual behavior because you did not engage them quite well, or you also didn't understand, is there any change? Because for you, all you wanted is to put a toilet. However, you have to follow up. Are they using it? Maybe there is something wrong with the design. What do we change? If it's water points, maybe we put the water points at in the wrong locations. Probably they want it closer to the toilets, closer to the kitchens, closer to this. So with more participatory approaches, you get to understand, you learn, you change. It's not a one-off. So if we want to derive impact from our projects, we really need to have evaluations in a continuous way and not a one-off. For practical frameworks, how outcome harvesting is done in WASH. It comes from the design, then you collect the data, you verify, analyze, and use. So when you're designing the harvest or the harvesting system, you have to clarify, what exactly do I want to know? What do I need? Who do I need to go to? Because remember, it's participatory, and you need to identify your key stakeholders, your scope, and then you also need to do it continuously. So in your design planning, you need to know that it's a continuous process. It's not a one-off, though we usually say outcome harvesting will start a year after the project has started. And then you start collecting all the outcome statements. This is the stories. And then, of course, you have to verify because not all stories are correct. So you have to verify these stories and then analyze, attribute, you start attributing the stories to whether is it attributed to our intervention or there is something else contributing to this. Yeah, and then we use the data. This is, I think, a conversation of another day. Linda, we could advocate for something like we could have a conversation on use because a lot of data stops at analysis. Yeah, and I feel we have to push for more data-driven decisions, changes. Yeah. Like I've been saying throughout my conversation, that I am not trying to run away from the traditional M&E. However, we could always just pick a few bits from outcome harvesting to make our reports more adaptive, more flexible, more fun to read. Yeah. And I tried to associate that tool, yeah, where routine M&E looks at outputs, KPIs, budget reporting, donor compliance. However, we can always bring in a mixed methods. Yeah, mixed methods where we are mixing the routine or the traditional M&E with outcome harvesting. We need the output tracking. However, we have to also attribute. We also have to follow through with behavior change. We have to do CAP surveys on top of the output tracking, yeah? And this is by triangulating impact, richer accountability. It's not just about how many, but there is a how there. Then adaptive, when we pick lessons from all these stories, we have to adapt. We have to go back to the drawing board and see, how do we do this better? What can we change? Yeah. And then we also have to do the narratives, that is the picking the stories, you narrate, you attribute, and yeah, this is more enticing, honestly. Yeah. Well, as we plan on doing all this, we have challenges to such kind of impact-driven evaluations. One being donor resistance. Many donors just want it to be linear, from log frame to outputs, period. And we have time and capacity. Sometimes we don't really have this much time to track all these changes because, like I said, when we are tracking impact, we are picking impact stories. It takes time. You start picking from year two. I mean, the project is 5, 6 years, but you want to see all the stages of the change, and then you can easily attribute to your project, which takes a lot of time and capacity, and not everyone can do it. And then impact-driven evaluation also faces a bias risk, yeah, because I mean it's the project staff doing this, so they might bias sometimes, which is a challenge for now. However, we also have enablers like buy-in from the senior management, who, I don't know, I would speak for myself as Viva Conagua. We are more into selling the story than the numbers. Yeah, the numbers will always be there. I'm not saying we don't write these reports, but we want to sell the story. We are always looking for what changed, why, how do we do better. And yeah, when you have buy-in from management, from your leaders, it's easier to provide budgets for all these story collections and community engagement. And then the other enabler is community harvesters. By involving communities, training them, it makes the stories easily collected, because sometimes these communities don't even speak your language. But if you train the community leaders or actors or ambassadors in the community, it makes outcome harvesting really easy. And then we also have digital tools. We recently launched a tool called Sprockler. And with this tool, it's more of a storytelling tool. So we could ask yeah, it's a before and after kind of narrative, and it moves away from, you know how in Kobo, okay, most tools there is that part where we have option A, B, C, D, and it's more like you're limiting someone's responses. But with Sprockler, or there are more tools that can expand or expound more onto the story or the background story, where someone narrates that, oh, I love this, I have seen this change, and it was at this point that I saw something has changed. I remember myself asking a head teacher, when did you realize that children's behavior are changing? And then he was like, the wash club came to me and they were asking for a hand washing tank near probably some block. Then I realized, oh, now these children actually know how important it is to wash their hands. And yeah, so it's always having these digital tools that help you collect all this data, analyze and also kind of give you all the graphics, easy to present. Yeah. And then I also managed to get a few recommendations for WASH practitioners who are intending on pushing more for impact-driven evaluations. One being hybridize your evaluation design. It's more like we could move away from the paper evaluations to the digitalized, because it's easy to present data, to analyze, to communicate this data to anyone, because it has all these graphs and yeah. And then to move away from just using one method, which is the log frame method, to a mixed method. So it's a hybrid we have the log frame, but also we are having these stories, we are having this data presented in this kind of easy to understand way. And then we should continue investing in community M&E capacities, because these people are always in the community. Sometimes it's costly for the project to always transport the M&E person to the field. However, if you have built capacities, first of all, building capacity itself is already an outcome of that project. You have built capacities, and even when this project leaves, these people can easily be hired by another project. However, it's also easier to collect these stories, to collect the data from the project areas, because you're having local capacities who understand the local context, and they can tell you things you could easily have missed. And then we should learn to celebrate surprising outcomes. Yeah, it's not a crime that this outcome is not in your log frame. Let's communicate it. Let's build on it. Let's capitalize on it, because you don't know who it's going to attract, who it's going to touch. And, I don't know, for us, we are always saying water for all. Water is a human right. Water is life. Yeah. And then when I tell someone, because we provided water, a child is kept in school, their parent can start up a business. Because we trained liquid soap makers, a mother out there can provide food. I mean, food was never in my outcomes. Food was never on my log frame. But now the livelihoods are changing because of this one training I gave. And now this group of women can make soap, supply to companies, supply to organizations, and now they can feed their families. So we have to learn to we usually call it drumming for yourself. Yeah, you dance to your own tune. Yeah, you praise yourself so much, because yes, you have achieved. It's also an achievement despite knowing not being on the log frame. And then we should also continue advocating for adaptive M&E. So we have to adapt to what we find in the field. It's not so if we find that this technology is not working, it doesn't hurt to look for something else. We always have to move on to the next working thing, because it's pointless to work for people who don't appreciate you. Then by the time that donor brings his own evaluator, they'll be like, what were you guys doing? You are wasting our money. Can you refund us? And that's, of course, very bad news for any organization. Yeah, we should also advocate for learning loop, for closing the learning loop. So we always have to pick lessons, yeah, from these stories. This is what we call adaptive M&E, I think, as well, that we have to adapt, we have to use. I think that's also the other part I was talking about, that we need to use the results. Because as M&Es, usually for me, if I give recommendations and then I see people developing proposals with the same things that I was advocating against, it kind of demotivates. So we should also always use the learnings and adopt them, and use them to change something about our interventions. And then we should always document. Let's make noise as much as possible. If you just find this one good story, it might land you to your next project. So let's document our stories. Let's document our successes. Let's make as much noise as we can. Yeah. So thank you so much. I close by saying the most important things that happen in WASH are really the things we planned for. You will be surprised what your project is doing. You will be surprised what that intervention is doing if you dig deeper and you just try to look beyond the log frame. Yeah. So let's move from counting taps to measuring lives. Thank you so much for listening to me. And I think this is where we open for questions.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Daphine, for your brilliant presentation. I believe this is a well put together blueprint for M&E practitioners doing something in the area of WASH. And so now is the time for questions. if there's any questions. So I've seen two questions already in the chat, so we can start with those. So the first question is, can we say that outcome harvesting applies a similar methodology to monitoring and evaluation in terms of the storytelling aspect? So that's the first question. And then the second question is, do we use the outcome harvesting method only with baseline evaluations? I ask because we have to map backwards from an outcome. How is that done with an endline survey? Okay, so if you can take these two questions.
Okay, thank you. I will start with the last. This is, I will not pronounce the names. Yeah, I see you are asking, do we use outcome harvesting method only with baseline evaluations? No. If you were following, there was a point where I said with outcome harvesting, we usually start with 1 year, 1 year after the project has started, because we are looking for change. I don't think you will get, I don't know, but for WASH projects, usually it's very hard to see change in just 1 year. If you are advocating for, okay, you're trying to fight opendification and you are, I would say, in a refugee setting, these people are coming from countries where they don't have to construct the toilet, and now you're trying to change their mindset that every household should have a toilet. I do not think that all households are going to have toilets in just a year. So with outcome harvesting, we try to track this behavior change. We try to start tracking change within a year. So after a year and then onwards, we can now see change. However, we could always base on baseline results that this is where these people were. We could even look beyond baseline that, okay, yeah, we did the baseline survey in 2025, but how were they in 2020 to 2020? And then, yeah, we could start tracking all these changes, because we need to know, how were you before that project? How were you when that project started? And how are you now that the project has ended or is coming to an end? And yeah, so it's not necessarily with only baseline evaluations. We could always, because remember, I also said we are looking for attribution. So there is more to change than just what the project was targeting. So we are trying to attribute, are there other actors? So we could also find that, oh, in this WASH project is a success because there is a certain education project somewhere, or a livelihood project, and we could make a decision that, oh, now let's look for a consortium, because we can't work in isolation. As WASH practitioners, we need someone from health, we need someone from education, we need livelihoods. I don't know, there have been all these consortiums and they are registering really good impact in their communities. I don't know if I have answered you, Ngesang.
Yeah.
Okay.
Confirm.
And okay, good. And then the other question was, can we say that outcome harvesting applies a similar methodology in terms of the storytelling aspect? Yes,
So
because
maybe
with
just to add, so I think she spelled out the meaning of the MAE. So it's made in Africa evaluation.
African
Yeah.
evaluation. Okay. So sorry, so you said MAE is what?
Yes. Made in Africa evaluation.
Made in Africa evaluation. I don't think I know what Made in Africa evaluation is, but yeah, to sum it all, outcome harvesting is really storytelling. We are telling our story, or we are narrating our journey from where we started to where we are and to where we look forward to being. Thank you.
Right. So we have a question from Francis. So first of all, he acknowledged your presentation. He said it's insightful. And he's asking, would we say outcome harvesting is more qualitative than quantitative?
Yes. Yes, Francis, outcome harvesting is more of qualitative. We are looking at the insight. We are looking at we go in depth. So because usually the traditional M&E is quantitative, we are looking at how many, how much, what percentage. But then when it comes to outcome harvesting, we are now looking at the quality of the percentage. How did the percentage change my life? Yeah, you gave me this, but how did I use it to make myself better? So yeah, it looks at it's a more qualitative approach to evaluation.
All right, I hope, Francis, your question has been addressed. Okay. So it seems some of us might be new to this made in Africa evaluation concept. So I'll just share a publication. It's a handbook which focuses on how African evaluators could hone their skills by contextualizing M&E more for the African setting. So like borrowing or like transferring the skills that they've gained through westernized evaluation approaches and bringing that more into like situating it within the African context. Yeah. And colleagues who are here who know the concept thoroughly or might have um, applied it can also chip in. Maybe Inga-san can also share if she has some additional information on the MAE. Okay, so we'll take her final question, which is, can outcome harvesting be used in other projects besides?
Mm. Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, it's just that our topic today was WASH, but I believe it can be used in all other sectors because for every project, all we look forward to is impact. And how do we communicate this impact? And yeah, I don't know, even if it's education, health, livelihood, outcome harvesting really applies to everything, to all sectors.
All right, thank you for that. I don't see any more questions. I believe the audience is satisfied. I don't see any hands up. Daphine, do you have any final words for us before we draw the curtains on today's meetup?
Um, yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me. Thank you, Linda, for trusting me. And I am open to any further conversations around any other topic. I am particularly a WASH practitioner, but as an M&E expert or an M&E professional, I have a versatile knowledge in different sectors because I have also done some consultancies, and yeah, I am really open to further conversations, and I'll be glad to be here again next month. Thank you.
Great. It's been a pleasure having you as our resource person for today. Thank you so much for your brilliant presentation. And I believe participants here can attest to that as well. So before we finally sign off, I've shared the link to our feedback form. So participants, please do well to provide feedback. And then you can also connect with women in RMEL through our various social media channels and also by email. So we are on YouTube, we have a page on X, and then LinkedIn as well. And you can also reach out by sending an email. And in the feedback form, you can propose any topic, or if you would like to be a resource person, you can also volunteer yourself to speak to our audience in our community as well. So at this point, On this note, would like to end today's session. Thank you all for making it. Thank you, Daphine, so much for your time and for sharing expertise. We'll definitely reach out to you again to share more with us. So thank you all. And yes, happy end to the month of April and happy new month in advance as we enter the month of May. See you all hopefully next month. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Bye.
Linda,
Yes.
for a moment.
Say again.
After it's gone, give your extended motivation.
Sorry, it's not so clear.
Something like, can you hear me?
The sound is not so good.
It's not. Hey, I'll chat later.
You put in the chat. Okay. Okay, sure. We'll connect later then. All right. So thank you all once again, and bye for now.